posterity, and you can use it. And there you go, recording in progress. So I'm going to turn it over to David now. Thank you.
Hey gang, let me share my screen real quick and I'll get the presentation going. Oh, I've got some things open. I didn't know I had all this stuff open. Let's see here. In the background, I know I had this ready to go. Just bear with me for just a second. I had this thing fired up. I just downloaded it just a second ago. Apologize. PowerPoint presentation. Okay. Can everybody see my screen? It says World Trade Center profile or no? What do you guys?
You'll see you
right now, David.
Oh, you don't want to see me. That's a waste of time, man. Nobody wants to see that. Let me just go back to the Zoom and apologize, gang. I've got it up on mine. Okay. Something should be pretty easy like this, right?
Yeah, you don't share, and then the screen you want to share or the presentation
yeah.
share, and you're good to go.
Yeah. I'm looking at it. Let me go back to the Zoom. It says post attendee on my Zoom though. I don't know if that's pretty bad. Let me did it show up yet or no? No?
Not yet.
Ah, all right. Apologize. Let me get through it. Okay.
Well, I just made you a co-host, so you should
share screen, and then I got my iPhone. Let me just try. I know I have it on a when I reduce it. Are you guys just seeing what right now?
Just you.
Ah. Let's see here. Oh. Yeah, it should be easy. I may log in and log back out. It just take us.
Hang on a second. I'll bring it up.
Okay.
Well, you better be giving us a good introductory talk for a second here while I'm
yeah, that's fine.
Downloading it and getting it ready for you.
Appreciate it. Thanks everybody for joining. I know, you know, it's a long day, right? Pouring down rain, nasty outside, one of those days, and really appreciate having the chance to share a few minutes with you guys. And been working with the World Trade Center, I guess, since 2019, and I'm a contractor. I'm a licensed customs broker, so we get a lot of cool questions from people around the state, and sometimes in Indiana and Cincinnati. But yeah, this organization, which we'll talk about in great detail, is here to help people, and it's just you'll see that right here. It's I'm a licensed customs broker. My company's name is LCBA ASAP. I just work as a contractor for World Trade Center, and why they brought me upon is to give technical help on import-export technical type questions. So we'll get some pretty wild questions out there. I got this question just to see how you guys would handle it. The other day I got a question. Someone wanted to import gold bars from Israel, and they just want to know how to do it. And it was like, you know, like about, I don't know, like about $100,000 worth of gold bars. So those are the kind of questions we get. And, you know, we help people get stuff through customs and legally how to do that. They were like, do we have to pay duties and taxes on that kind of stuff? So those are the weird things that we see and happen. So on the next page, you'll see what our role is. The mission is just to accelerate trade and just help people out more than anything. It's you know, we want to be the premier consultant for people, businesses in Kentucky. And what we do is we have a lot of member companies that all pool their resources together. And my role is to try to help people with just the wild card questions they have with training and anything to do with import export. So yeah, what people don't know is a lot of people is we have a great representation from around the Commonwealth. We've got, you know, some of the biggest and best companies and some growing companies too. This is just a sampling where our board of directors are from. You see Alltech, UK and U of L have representation. Toyota has someone, and we've got some law firms too. had the chance to work with a couple of these law firms on some cases, and App Harvest, brand new company. So yeah, so we've got great representation, and what this is it's a member type, member type organization. You got members, and they have board of directors, and anybody who's a member of the World Trade Center can use resources of everybody together. So Kentucky Exports, we are considered a small state, but we export a lot of products around the globe. We've got 32 billion bucks about, and we're the 17th largest state exporter of goods. So that's pretty big. When you think of Kentucky, you don't think of manufacturing and exporting, but and we are the 20th largest agricultural exporting state. So we do have a lot of exports and thoroughbred horses and exporting around the world too. So
Does the agricultural include bourbon, or is that
It-
been processed too much to be included in agriculture?
no, it includes bourbon. So that's a really good, that's a really good thing for us as yeah. And that being said, bourbon exports starting to pick up. Some of the restricted tariffs in the Europe had lifted. So, I think we're going to start to rock and roll again and see a lot more bourbon exports. So anyway, some of the top exports, this just blows people's minds usually, because we think of Toyota, right? We think of Toyota, we think of the Corvette plant in Bowling Green, and automotive is a big player in our industry, but aerospace, you're like, aerospace, where's the aerospace? It's actually the biggest exporter. And you think of aerospace, you think of like Boeing in Seattle and places like that, but we have a lot of chemicals and computers and electronics, so machinery. You'll see that we export some pretty high-tech goods in Kentucky, and that's just not what people would think from outside this state. But Kentucky people have a lot of skill, and we've got some pretty great companies that export a lot of parts.
In aerospace, don't we have a company or two that make air brakes or brake components for Airbus?
Yeah, their Maggot in Danville is one, and we do have I'm trying to think. There's some up in northern Kentucky that they have. I think they've got a place up there too in northern Kentucky. So, but that's a good one, and we've got a map. We'll show you where a lot of the aerospace companies are exporting from.
General Electric had a factory out in Madisonville that makes the blades for the jet engines.
Wow. Yeah, that's big time. Well, I think of GE, I think
I
of
was
more
there a few
Cincinnati,
years
right?
ago.
But yeah. Here's kind of the map, and you'll see that there's some one-offs out in the state a little bit, but you look into the Cincinnati, Louisville, and in our general areas is where most of the action is for aerospace. Safran Landing Systems is big up in northern Kentucky. Like you said, Dave, GE Aviation. Lockheed Martin is big in, I think in Lexington. I think there used to be out on like the Paris Pike area.
You're in Bluegrass Station.
Bluegrass Station, that's what I was looking for.
Yeah.
Yeah. They've got like a campus type thing out there where they've got a lot of little buildings out there, but very good company. And Mazak in northern Kentucky is another one that does a lot of aerospace exports. So yeah. When you think about Kentucky, when I was growing up, I grew up in Frankfort. We didn't have all this foreign investment. I'm old enough to where we didn't even have Toyota. In Georgetown was just a little cow town where I live right now. But it's just crazy how we've got a lot of great foreign investment, and the growth has been astronomical. You look at all the flags represented by what countries are investing in Kentucky, and it's absolutely amazing. So if you work for a manufacturing company, there's a decent chance it may be owned by someone overseas now. So yeah, but we've got 500 international facilities, a ton of jobs, and 34 countries are represented. So some things that we do is trade and business missions, and these can get pretty big and involved. And a lot of times we'll partner with other organizations. We've taken people to Canada on a trade missions where you meet potential matches with other companies and meet government officials and try to build those contacts that help you in business. We did one to Savannah, Georgia to go to. This is really cool. We went to Savannah, and I don't know, just to look at the ocean port type, receiving type the area and just visit the director of the port. You see how containers came into the Savannah port, which is a really, really nice, pretty big port, and took a mission down there to check out and build some relationships. So World Trade Center road trips, and it's a great way to meet people. And we don't have anything going right now because of COVID. We haven't done anything before COVID, but until COVID, but hopefully we'll have something in the works here soon.
How involved is our Commonwealth government in helping with imports and exports?
It's a partnership. World Trade Center is just like a piece of the puzzle. We work a lot with economic development in Frankfurt, and also a lot of people have their own economic development, like cities have their own council and county government. So it's a multi-tiered, but there's all kinds of resources. One thing people don't really know is there's a lot of free money out there too. From the state does like these grants, step grants, and they'll pay for a lot of your training, international training, but you have to be on a smaller, like a smaller company a lot of times. Or like a minority-owned company, but there is a lot of resources. World Trade Center a lot of times we'll get inquiry from out in the field, and we might refer you to the Department of Commerce. I've done a little bit of work with Louisville city government and did some pro bono work for them over there, or just free work to try to help educate some small businesses over there. So yeah. This is what trade advisory services. We'll go in and help companies out, and we'll actually teach, just like you guys, like Dave and Eric teach APEX courses. We'll teach something called an Export 101 or Import 101, and we'll give the students just the basics of how to import and export. Or a lot of times we'll run into companies that have trouble, that they're having problems getting something through customs, or they'll have a specific issue pop up where their harmonized codes are wrong, or they're just having some kind of general problems, and we don't know how to import export, and we just want someone to come in and help us out. And it, when you import and export, it's heavily regulated. You're dealing with governments, and it's great to have another set of eyes come in to verify how you're doing and make sure you're doing anything legally correct, because there is a lot of risk in import and export. You can really get in a lot of trouble, and some of our companies around here actually have gotten a little bit of trouble here and there if you don't pay attention to what the federal government regulations. It's hard to, because most companies don't think about regulations as far as import export. They want to make money, they want to ship product, they're geared toward that, and this is kind of like, gosh, how does this help me today? So it's kind of a tough sell sometimes, but it's very, very beneficial.
Yeah, so I've got a quick story for you on that. About 20 years ago, I was working for a company that had a division in Germany, and they sold a dual use headset. So they had military use as well as commercial use. They sold it commercially into Libya. We found out about it and ended up having to self-declare to the government. And between the fines and the legal fees and everything else, it was over $250,000. So a little over 250,000 plus, in order to get us back in the good graces. And that was a one-time event on a $20,000 sale. So it was pretty brutal to have to go through that. And when I was working on an SAP project, we ended up running into issues because of the denied parties list, where there are named people that the U.S. government says that we can't sell to, whether they're domestic or foreign. And those are intricacies that most companies will never run into until they start doing something on the import-export side.
Yeah, those are great points. It's just usually, unfortunately, when we get involved, we're like a doctor or a lawyer or whatever. A lot of times people wait, too long. They'll say, hey, we've got a letter. I did a project with this guy from a legal firm here in Lexington, and it was a project where this company had started getting all these warning letters from the Department of Commerce that they were illegally importing goods, and then they need help. So, but to your point, Eric, you got to do the right thing because you declared it. If you find a violation, the best thing to do is to report it and go through that process. Now, a lot of times, I would advise you to ask a few different people. Lawyers are awesome. When a lawyer gets a hold of a case like that, they want to protect you as good as they can. They will, no expenses is too much for them. They'll get in that case and they'll work real hard for you, but it'll cost you a lot of money, that's for sure. So you just got to be careful who you work with and who you ask things about. But some trade education services we do an international trade certification. We just got done doing one of those at Valvoline. We had people from Alltech, Link Belt, Valvoline, and some smaller companies join in. And this is like a curriculum where we have like a 3-day curriculum of probably about 15 speakers. They do about an hour bit, and it's great. It's really a great way to learn and meet people. And I presented this for years, but I love going and just listen to other people. I learn more than anybody, I think, by going these and listen to a lot of experts in the field. So it's a lot of fun. But so part of the program, they get a huge trophy. It's not a trophy, it's a big plaque that you pass the class, and it's a lot of fun. But if you know anybody who wants to get in this field or has some company sponsorship, it's a great way to meet people and develop contacts. When I started doing this about 20 years ago, I didn't know anybody in this business, and to have that contact, to be able to talk to someone really helps, and meet people in the field. And just like Apex, the same way, right? It's so invaluable to be able to pick up the phone and say, hey, Eric, Dave, whoever, I have this problem. What happened? Because you might have had a similar situation, and it's just great way to network and meet people. Yeah.
So tell me about the trade navigation series and the international MBA program, please.
Yeah, we do. As far as the international MBA program, we do a bit for the UK and U of L MBA team, where we teach a little class. And I don't personally do it. Our president, Dr. Omar, does it right now. And it's just a section where they'll go in and talk to the MBA students. They have a little bit on international trade. So it's not like a full class, but it's like they do it for it's just U of L in UK right now. And it's really good. I've seen the curriculum, and it's really good and really smooth. And trade navigation series is a similar type program to where they kind of can point you in the right direction of who you need to have to help you out if you have a problem. Yeah.
Okay.
But you'll see that, we've partnered with a lot of different companies. To your question, we work with Kentucky Chamber of Commerce, Small Business Development. U.S. Commercial Services is a free resource. It's the Department of Commerce, and they'll try to help you get into different markets. If if you're a mid or small size company and you don't know what you're doing on the exports, there's a lot of free resources out there. Commerce will help you make some connections, and they'll try to, to educate you a little bit. Kentucky Association of Manufacturers will put on a seminar every once in a while about exporting, and there's all kinds of resources out there. People don't really know about them, but if you're interested in learning some more or meeting some people in the government that might be able to help you out or get you some free money, grant money, I can help you out, point you in the right general area to talk to. But yeah, it's just some things going on in international trade. We've got the 301 tariffs right now still, and that's the question I get overall, is when are these Chinese tariffs going to go away? Because and the answer I have is I thought they would have gone away a long time ago, and they just haven't. But they have been reduced. The big thing right now is that PC boards have been taken off the Section 301 tariff, so it helps out a lot of people. But it's a big deal. 25% tariffs on goods from China, and a lot of people resource goods and looking for ways to get out of them. But there's no magic bullet. People say, well, how can I get out of that? Well, it's pretty hard. I don't have a magic wand for something like that. But
So do you see people reshoring or nearshoring as a result of that?
without a doubt, yeah, we reshored some stuff. That the place people are going to is they try to go to Vietnam right now. That's the place, the hot spot to go. Vietnam is And sometimes South Korea can do some stuff for you on the electronic side, but it's just, it's been tough. It just, from a technology side, and with these Section 301s, it kind of double hit everybody. Everybody knows this, but we had Section 301 tariffs hit, then we had supply chain problems through COVID, and then, you're just lucky to get a part from anywhere. So, it's just kind of the boat we're in right now. So, some other frequently asked questions. I always get this question. It's really weird. And I kind of waver on it a little bit, but there are a lot of lawyers out there that are trying to file class action lawsuits against the federal government, saying that the big tariffs from China are illegal. And what they'll do is they'll ask you for about $10,000, and then if the federal government, and there is a court case, if the federal government gets ruled against, they have to refund all the 301 tariffs, which would be an astronomical amount of money, a crazy amount of money. There's a possibility that could happen. Personally, I don't think that'll ever happen, but almost all big companies are willing to pay up 10 grand, because you pay up 10 grand, it's like buying a lottery ticket. You may win an awesome amount of cash back. So I wouldn't recommend a small company do it, but some of the bigger companies, what the heck, you got 10,000 to blow, throw your name on the class action lawsuit. If it doesn't happen, then you can write it off. But yeah, that's a question I get all the time. One thing is drawback claim, duty drawback. And you guys may already know this, if you get parts in, you import a part in, and then you export that part back out, you get a refund of your duties. And for many years, who cares, duties 1 or 2%. But now with these 25% tariffs on the Chinese goods, everybody who exports stuff back out wants to collect that 25% back, and you can do it. But the thing I get all the time is, hey, we want to do a duty drawback, but we don't have you have to have a good paper trail, and you have to be organized. And it's a little bit risky to do if you don't have your stuff together, but you can get a lot of money back. And I'm working with a couple companies right now that have had some pretty good successes getting some money back for their exports. So yeah. Country of origin claims is a big one. That's another place people get in trouble. I dealt with a company that was exporting stuff from, I can't remember what country. It was maybe, I'm going to say Vietnam, but it was really coming from China, and the Vietnam place was just shipping it on. It's like a pass through. They were claiming it as Taiwan origin, but it was really Chinese origin, and they should have been paying a lot more duty. So that's something I get all the time, is country of origin. Sometimes it can be pretty complex to calculate, but World Trade Center will help you if you need
And
help.
that gets pretty involved when you're dealing with the federal government that has sourcing rules about it must be US sourced and things of that nature, right?
Exactly. Yeah. It matters what end usage you have to. A company I work for is and it gets a little bit more. We do a lot of federal government military type stuff, and there's something called the Wassenaar Agreement, where they want you to source all U.S. goods, because we don't want our U.S. military wearing something that has a made in China label on it or something like that. So it can get kind of hairy, and but there's a lot of areas that you can get in some pretty big trouble on. But every part, people always think, the first thing people always say to me is, hey, this part has over 50% content in it. That means it's made in the USA. Well, it matters what rules you're looking at. There's all kinds of different trade agreements, and each part kind of has their own rules of origin. So it can get pretty complex, and a lot of companies just kind of rush into that.
And there's a difference between assembled in the USA and made in the USA, right?
Exactly right. I did one the other day that was just an assembled in the USA, but made in the USA means you had the full origin, US origin. Assembled in the USA means just what it says. You put it together, you can use it for marketing purposes, but it may not be, you may not get the preferential treatment on duties if you export it to, if your part doesn't fit that qualification.
And what was this line here about resourcing?
Let's see. Oh, I get that, just as a hey, we buy all this stuff from China. Can you help us move our stuff to some other place? And it, that's kind of an Apex thing too, or an APM, but that's something we get all the time is, hey, can you help us out? we need to really reduce our 301 tariffs. We need to reduce, what can we do? And we were helping people, you know, a little bit. It got really bad though with COVID, and people were just trying to get parts anywhere they could. I know a lot of companies I've dealt with have been in that boat. So, yeah. One thing I always get is USMCA compliance. Used to be NAFTA, because a lot of people ship to Mexico or Canada, and just the forms and what goes into the calculations. And again, this can get pretty involved. It matters what part you're doing. U.S. government's really, I started out doing NAFTA, gosh, in the early 90s when NAFTA became a law. And it's gotten more complex as the years have gone on. And the U.S. government is getting a little bit more, they have a little bit more audit power now on documents. Unless you were a really, really big company, you wouldn't really have to be worried about being audited now. They did a few things with their administrative rules where they don't have to do like a full-blown audit on you. They could just send you a couple of inquiries. So if you do have companies that have USMCA products, you need to be real careful and make sure you're classifying goods correctly, because I see stuff all the time. It's not even close to being correct on these forms. So,
So has there been a big change with moving a lot of this documentation to online and prior to shipment? That makes it easier for audit?
yeah, that's a good point too. Electronic documents are available. That's the way a lot of the parcel carriers want it now. If you deal a lot with UPS, DHL, and FedEx kind of have a monopoly on. They have a special rule that they can clear their own shipments, and they want everything electronic up front, and you can get stuff cleared a little bit easier that way. It matters bringing in the United States. It matters what country you're shipping to. The one thing that it's hard to explain to people is every country has so much different rules and paperwork requirements. Just because you ship something to some country and you had a certain set of documents or you did electronic, it may not clear if you send it to someone else in a different part of the world. So it can get pretty crazy. Number one thing that frustrates people, and I try to explain this, is in import export, is you may have had a shipment you did 1 year ago, same paperwork, same product, same price, same harmonized code, and a year later it gets hung up in customs. And so it's not an exact science. U.S. government has to inspect so much goods, and it just is, I think people get a little bit frustrated with the fact that, it's not perfection. And if you're in the business we're in, you just have to be a little bit patient, and you have to support the federal government. They're trying to help us out. They're trying to make sure we're safe, and sometimes people get frustrated at them, but Customs is great, smart people, Department of Commerce, Defense, trying to protect people, do a fantastic job. You won't find people who are more educated and want to do a good job from 99% of them. Yeah.
Now, is pre-clearance of containers and shipments from overseas now a requirement?
It is. You have to do something called an ISF if you're bringing something into the United States. And what that does is it highlights the product you're bringing, where is it coming from, the type of product it is. And so the U.S. government gets this before container sales. So say you have something coming from you in Taiwan, you have to fill out all this information to get submitted to the U.S. government. So the U.S. government's got this kind of like a playbook, say, okay, we're getting in this product from Taiwan, and they've got a really sophisticated tracking database. And they can kind of pick and choose what they want to audit. A lot of them are still random audits, but they want to try to protect U.S. government, and they've got ways they can find out something doesn't make sense, right? They've got all these inconsistencies, and if you're shipping something from China and it's $1,000 for a 40-foot container, it's probably going to flag a system that something's not right here, and same thing for exports. If you're sending stuff out, you have to file a lot of your exports with the U.S. government, and it'll flag if something weird happens. So you might get a phone call. So yeah. some more questions you get is how do you get started? It's daunting. It's like anything. I would recommend people start with places like Canada, Mexico, some places like Japan's really great to export. Personally, I don't mind exporting to China. Their document requirements are very rigid, but they operate like a machine. They are really, really good. If you make a mistake, you're going to pay for it. But if you do everything right, it'll clear pretty easy. HES classifications. How do you classify a part? How much is it going to cost? That's what I always get to is, hey, we want to ship to something to Brazil. How much is it going to cost the customer when it actually gets there? Because duties and taxes can be quite high. And in general, if you import something into the United States that's not one of these punitive tariffs, like 25% Chinese, most tariff rates are 2%, 3%. Sometimes you go up to 4 or 5. When you ship something to Brazil, for example, the tariff rate might be 40%. Or if you ship something to the European Union, just the tax, which you might be able to get back, but the tax is about 20%. So there is a really unbalanced play field. I think that it's kind of an eye opener for a lot of people that we're shipping stuff to some other country and we're paying 20% duties, but we're importing that same stuff here and it's a 1% duty. So just it's the way it goes. We're a nation of importers, and I think that kind of opens a lot of people's eyes. But we deal with custom clearance issues. We'll help people out. We get some really fun stuff. It's crazy that gosh, I had some pretty weird stuff with some biological substances and stuff like that happened. But every once in a while you run into a legal issue that it's fun to do. I'll get questions like, hey, we want to import live fish from somewhere else. How do we do that? And so anything's a fair question, and we're here to help. So that's what keeps it fun. Yeah. If you guys ever want to chat or talk about anything to do with import and export, it's what I love to do. And it's like I think the field is so broad in import and export, and the laws are pretty complex. And I've been doing it long enough to where I have a pretty good feel for it. But nobody, you got people on there saying, hey, I know everything about import export. Nobody knows. It's like being a kind of a lawyer and having a specialty. Is that there's so much stuff out there, so many laws change fast. And, if I don't have an answer for you, I probably know someone who can get an answer for you, but always here to help, and love to talk import, export, love to talk global trade. Just a couple of things I didn't have on here is you guys, I don't know if you've seen forced labor. If anybody knows what forced labor is, it's a big thing right now. It's going to be in the future. They're starting to restrict a lot of trade around the world. A section of China, you can't bring product in from that area because it's a forced labor area where, the U.S. government's determined it's high risk and workers are actually having to work without their voluntary consent. So forced labor is big right now. A lot of Chinese companies, we import so much from China. A lot of Chinese companies, even universities, are getting put on the debarred list. What Eric had said earlier on. It's illegal to import from a lot of places, and a vast majority of our importers, a lot of them don't know where the product actually comes from. They may buy it from a distributor, they might buy it from a middleman, but where does the product origin from is so critical. And that list is getting really complex with Russia and Ukraine. So it's really the world. When I was doing this 20 years ago, it wasn't near as complex, but there's so many people out there that are getting on these debarred lists, and you can't just blindly import or export. For World Trade Center, one of our clients is Papa John's, and every time I see Papa John's, I'm like, you guys, what are you going to do? Are you going to export a bunch of pizzas to Cuba or something like that? I mean, I have no idea, but everybody is in this together, and they probably import equipment and they want to make sure they're clean. But anyway, it's a complex world. We're here to help, and anything we can ever do for you, I'd love to have a chance to speak
Do
with
we
you.
have custom house brokers and freight forwarders here in Kentucky?
It's a weird industry. There's only a couple, but almost all of them are these, mega companies that are headquartered in New York. You got the three big ones that do parcel: UPS, DHL, FedEx. They've got their own brokerage, but you got so many ocean carriers, and every ocean carrier has their own customs brokers. But it's a really big industry. It's okay. I can consult. I can do a little bit of transactions for people, but the financial risk is so high, for some mom and pop type person. Because what licensed brokers do is a lot of times they'll pay the duties and taxes for you, then you'll have to reimburse them. So for UPS, FedEx, no problem. Hey, you got a $200,000 shipment. They'll pay the duties and taxes and come back and get it from you. But small brokers, it's just hard to do stuff like that. Yeah.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions, comments, additional suggestions?
Yeah, David, I got a question. We got a fella who has a business in the central Kentucky, Lexington area, and he imports things from China. And I don't think he's having any trouble with the customs part, but that'd be curious to know. But his problem is he doesn't speak Chinese, and the people he's dealing with in China aren't that good on English. So
That's funny.
So what do you suggest is something like that?
Yeah, the number one thing that happens to people is they ship the product, it shows up at customs, nobody knows what to do. If they can just get the paperwork ahead of time, it almost is a requirement. Say, hey, I'm going to order this PO. You provide me, and a lot of people will, it sounds really ridiculous, but a lot of people will hold the paperwork kind of as hostage. They'll say, hey, when you give me the paperwork to approve, I will give you my UPS account. I will give you my FedEx account. Then you can ship the goods. And so if you get the paperwork ahead of time, you got a chance to vet it and look at it, because the company you're dealing with in China, really, they have almost no liability when they ship product to you. I mean, the US government's going to come after you if you have the wrong classification, wrong duty amount, the wrong valuation amount. So really have no liability. And it's a wild world out there. Let me tell you guys, we deal with people who are not afraid to ask, hey, can you put the wrong tariff code on there? Because my duty rate's a lot lower if we do it this way. Or, hey, I know that costs $10,000, but can you put 500 on it so we don't have to pay duties and taxes as much? So it's ridiculous in that way, and it's funny.
But to Dave's point, do you have translation services or anybody that you can put
Hey,
somebody in touch with for translations?
Yeah, we don't at the World Trade Center. There's probably, you can talk to economic development, might be able to help this guy out. They might be able to give him a freebie. I know that if it's a small company and you get a STEP grant, that translation services are covered. And they used to give you like $5,000 a year, and you just had to spend it on certain services like translation or brokerage or something like that. So, but it's the people in Frankfurt, the state government Department of Economic Development, might be a great place to start out.
Okay. Any other questions or comments?
Hey, David, this is Everett Bracken. How does your services translate to a service company? I run an executive search business. We are doing searches internationally.
Yeah, Everett. Yeah, great question. We have dealt with service companies. That's a question I get occasionally. As far as recruitment, you guys would have to screen people if you're doing for internationals to make sure you guys already do that, probably they're able to work here. But
well, I'm already doing it. So I recruit across multiple countries. But one thing that you brought up was the trade and missions.
Yeah.
And I'm now getting familiar with the STEP grant, but for the longest time, I fronted all of my business development globally.
Okay. Yeah, maybe one of those missions, could be a thing that could help you out. Service, these missions, I think some people from the service side went up to Canada with them last time. You know, there's some things that trying to figure. We did some restaurants and some other stuff in Louisville, but yeah, it is geared a little bit toward manufacturing, but you know, I think with the step and I would economic development might be help you a little bit more. We usually deal with products and more of a manufacturing type situation, but we have had some service people come and here and go.
So what kind of help would you be looking for, Everett?
Well, this was like my first meeting with your organization, but he brought up the one aspect of trade and business missions. So that actually sounded appealing to, like, if you're visiting certain countries, I would just view that as part of my business development.
Yeah, so the U.S. government does trade missions as well, not just the Commonwealth of Kentucky or the World Trade Center. And you may find some information through them as well that would help you, especially targeting certain countries. I know that they run several a year over in Europe and in Latin America and Asia.
Okay. Along those lines, in regards to like reverse business development, you have, I'm assuming we have companies outside the US who's trying to figure out what to do in Kentucky and then how to staff it.
Yep. Yeah, I think that's a growing field, especially as we develop more manufacturing and around EV batteries and things of that nature. That's a whole growth area. And if you take a look at some of the reclaiming of batteries, that's I think a German company that's setting up here in Kentucky. So there is a lot of that going on now, that there are companies coming from other countries. They don't always want to use expats. Rather, sometimes they'd want to be able to hire people from internally. But then there are some American companies that are desperate for some expats who have experience in areas that we're not familiar with. And again, the economic development in Frankfurt ought to be able to provide you with some information on that side, because there's also trade missions that are inbound, right? People coming to Kentucky or to the other parts of the United States in order to be able to work with stuff. I used to do some of that out of New York when I lived up there, primarily with European countries that had trade missions with companies trying to establish themselves in the US or some kind of US partnership. And that was very active. Now, I'm going back to the 1980s and 1990s, so that's a very long time ago, but I'm pretty sure that stuff still happens.
Yeah, not for COVID, but I think it's starting to break loose. It'll probably happen again here soon.
Yeah, okay, good. Anything else?
Yeah, David, at the beginning, you said that you provide services to member companies.
That's true, Dave. Yeah, the member, we you know, if someone asks me a question, I'm not going to turn them down. I mean, you know, that's not my nature. But you know, a lot of companies, we have probably 40 or 50 companies that have a pretty active presence, and you know, they'll shoot me a question, I'll shoot something right back to them as far as an answer. But if you know anybody who wants to chat, you know, if someone wants to ask us a question or two, that's great. If they want to develop more of a relationship, they probably got to join. But you know, I get people all the time that just, hey, we saw your information online. You know, we were just wanting to know about, like, that gold question, how we should import gold, you know, or how we should, you know, do something else. So anyway, yeah, it's no problem.
Yeah. What is the cost then to join?
I can't remember. There's a couple of different, like anything, there's like a gold member, a platinum member, you know, but I can't remember. If I remember, I think it may be about $1,000, but I am not sure. It might be cheaper than that. It's probably between $500 and $1,000. Is
this when you say, if you go out to our website, you'll be able to find the information?
Of course, yeah, exactly right. Yeah. We've got an organization. I'm a contractor for them, so yeah.
So David, you mentioned the international trade certification. How often is that done each year?
Yeah, great question. We do it we did it in November, and we used to do it in April. So twice a year. We usually get about 15 or 20 people to come in, and it is a lot of fun. Some people, I love this kind of stuff, but it's kind of fascinating to me to talk about global trade, but it's some are better than others, but it's a pretty good program, and it's a great way to meet people and develop a little bit, but twice a year. Yeah.
So how do people find out about it? It's on your website?
Yeah. Wait a second. I've got an 8th grader who just came home. I'll be right back. I'll be right there. Yeah. Daddy. Anyway, yeah, you could go our website. We'll do it every April and November, and you could register online if you know anybody, and it's WTCKY.org. And this is a they're pretty nice. I mean, they usually have a nice venue, nice food, and pretty nice people to chat with and hang out for a couple of days.
Okay.
Okay. Any last questions or comments? Well, in that case, I'm going to let David go back to his 8th grader, and I thank all of you for joining. The recording will be posted up on YouTube when I finally get it converted, which will probably be a day or so. And then last reminder, we will have the EKU program in December before we break for Christmas holidays. With that, I thank all of you for joining, and I appreciate your being part of tonight's meeting. Thank you.
Thanks, Dave.
Appreciate you
Bye.
guys.